Hey, how y'all doing? So, this week, we're gonna have a little chat about body image. That's what we're gonna do. Don't mind the array of materials behind me. Always learning. I just wanna say, first of all, this whole thing with body image and body acceptance, body love, whatever you wanna call it, I am still on a massive journey with it. I am nowhere near there. I don't think I'm gonna speak about anything like particularly triggering in terms of eating disorders or anything like that. I'm not going to go there, so don't worry. I'm just going to start to explore body love, body image, those sort of ideas, and this is honestly an exploration. So these are some things that I am starting to realize or think about and accept on my own journey to trying to love myself and accept myself as I am, and to try and learn behaviors that benefit my health and well-being rather than reacting to things emotionally, like in terms of eating, or rather than trying to change or better my body for validation or acceptance. I'm really trying to work out what a healthy balance is, what it looks like, how it feels. So I am not an expert, but I'm just sharing some of mine in the hope it helps some of yours, as ever. I hope this will just act as food for thought. It's an open conversation. I'd love to hear where you're at with it. But I think ultimately what I wish for all of us is self-love and acceptance. And I wonder how far we could go if we learnt to really do that authentically. I'm just gonna throw some ideas I've had out here, and hopefully at the end of this you will either feel a bit more love for yourself or at least be questioning why you don't and more open to trying to find that love. That's what I hope. One thing I'm thinking about is in terms of what I follow. I feel like I have curated my feed pretty well, especially since the most recent Black Lives Matter moment in the movement, which is ongoing. Keep fighting, keep speaking up, keep educating yourself, keep feeling uncomfortable, keep elevating and amplifying our Black brothers and sisters. As a result of all of that, I feel even more I'm really conscious of who I am following, what I allow to infiltrate my brain. I am educating myself more and more all the time, and I'm loving following more Black voices, more people from the trans community. I do feel an awakening in myself and an understanding and education in a way that is really positive and makes me a better person and a more well-rounded person and a more open person. I've always prided myself on being open and non-judgmental, so I think it's easy to sort of full stop that, like I've spoken about in my therapy video. But there's always more work that you can do, and the world is always changing, we're ever evolving. So you might think you're open about one strand, but then things have changed since you last visited that, and there's more to learn and there's more to be open about. I feel that I have a pretty healthy feed, that I've curated myself for an open-minded, non-judgmental space with lots of love and education. And I went through a real spree a few years ago where I followed a lot of body positivity influencers and women who were plus size. One thing I felt at the time was I still never saw a body like mine. All of the plus size bodies that I saw were very hourglass. That's not really my shape. And I remember sort of like Googling like non-hourglass plus size shapes. I still didn't feel represented because it still felt like an ideal rather than just normal bodies. See, rather than normal body, what is a normal body? I have to call myself out there, but you know what I mean. I don't feel like all of us are blessed with the Coke bottle ideal. That shouldn't be an ideal, but it's been made so. But my ideal in my head is like, you're like that. That's my own shit. But yeah, that's all I saw, and I was like, that ain't me. So I still don't feel good. So nothing was really helping. So then I just, started to look to follow all sorts of bodies, all different shapes and sizes, all of them normal. What is normal? Normal is just what we have. In doing so, I think at first it made me feel better. And then recently I've been looking at a lot of these bodies in the body positivity movement. And I think it is because of Black Lives Matter and opening up my feed more, and, you know, seeing more about how fat Black women started that movement so that they saw their body reflected, seen, normalized, I guess, as a way of being like, here I am and this is me and this is who I am and I deserve to take up space too, because we all do, right? That did get me thinking, and I was kind of like, a lot of the bodies I follow that are supposedly, you know, normal bodies or not perfect or any of that, if that's not perfect, what is perfect? I mean, but that is then saying that perfect is like unattainable, airbrushed plastic surgery, like help along the way. And nothing against plastic surgery if that's what you want to do, as long as it's for the right reasons and it's about you, all for it. But that is not necessarily something that anybody could achieve without the aid of plastic surgery. Do you see what I mean? So if you're somebody who's not going to get plastic surgery and you're comparing yourself against things that have happened because of plastic surgery, that's quite a tricky place to live in, because you just aren't going to get there. Basically, you're forever chasing something that ain't going to happen. So the question that it raised for me was, if the majority of space in the body love, body image, body positivity market or movement is being taken up by bodies that are considered socially acceptable, i.e. white, a size 16 and under, blonde, hourglass, not hairy, no disability, then how are we challenging our own views or ideals or expectations? We aren't, surely. That then means, for bigger women, I'm speaking here, who chastise themselves for not being smaller, that then means we're allowing somebody not as skinny as like the dream, the ideal, to make us feel better. But then that leaves really small margins. I feel like the more I look at different body types and all of the shapes, and because if you really, you know, if you were on a tube carriage and you made everybody strip, apparently a bunch of naked people on a tube carriage or train carriage is quite smelly. Because I did Pure and for Channel 4, and that was one of the scenes. And apparently there were some funky smells. I wasn't there that day, but I was told. Can you imagine like a tube carriage? Imagine them all getting naked. The bodies would be so different, right? Like, so, and so often like not what you'd expect, or because, you know, we have all these preconceptions, and often how people look in clothes and how they look at naked is so wildly different. Naked Attraction, the TV show, in case you don't know what that is. I find the more I look at very different body types, the more I celebrate them, and in turn, the more I celebrate my own, because you start to realize that nothing is normal. If you're just seeing the same type of body all the time, or your idea of like body positivity and body love is just a woman who's like a size 14 or 16, just, you know, sitting in a way that she has a bit of a roll, and you're then looking at that like, yeah, okay, see, I can have a roll. I mean, that it's I said it, but it's just such small margins. Like, it has to be bigger and more expansive than that. It has to be. You have to be allowed to move like more within these lines. It's such a small window of celebration, and it's such a small window of acceptance. I feel like in looking at skinny bodies, fat bodies, disabled bodies, curvy bodies, enhanced, surgically enhanced bodies, scarred bodies, this whole mix of different shapes and sizes and experiences and colours and shades, and that's where the celebration comes from, right? And that's where the freedom comes from. And I just wonder so often, what would our bodies be like if there were no expectations put on them? What would we decide? Surely we would then just do the things that make us feel good, whether that be exercise or eating or both. I mean, that's definitely what everyone should be doing, exercising and eating. But, you know, whatever like you lean into that makes you feel good, you do more of that. And what would we look like? Potentially just a lot healthier, because we'd be happy. And I'd say the healthiest bodies are happy bodies that fuel themselves right because they love themselves right. And there's no one size fits all. And some people are just meant to be bigger and some people are meant to be smaller. And that's absolutely fine. But if we're all trying to fit in this really skinny margin ideal, we're fucked. I feel strongly that our idea of normal isn't very normal and actually alienates probably the majority of the world. I also feel strongly, again, this is coming more from my side because I'm somebody who's always battled with feeling too big and wanting to lose weight. So that's what I speak to. But this culture, and we all are guilty of it, of celebrating people for losing weight, for having lost weight, I think it's really unhealthy, and I'm trying to catch myself do it. because we see in our society losing weight is a good thing because you're closer to the ideal. That shouldn't be the defining feature. That shouldn't be the go-to celebration, because a lot of the time people lose weight because they're unwell, or they're not eating because they're stressed, or they're putting themselves through rigorous exercise regimes that they can't keep up and not eating enough. And their weight loss doesn't mean that they're healthy, and their weight loss doesn't mean that they're happy. But because society says we should look a certain way, we automatically commend that and we mean it as a compliment. But what if by doing that, and obviously we all do it to be nice, no one tends to say it to be mean to anyone unless you're a real psycho. But what we're doing is we're undermining that person's experience, and we're not asking the question. We're not like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? We're telling them, well done, you've lost weight. What if they've lost weight because they're in an emotionally abusive relationship? What if they've lost weight because they've just got a terrible health diagnosis? We just presume that losing weight is a good thing because society tells us we're supposed to be thin. We're making their weight the defining feature, promoting and celebrating that over checking in on whether they're exhibiting unhealthy habits or behaviors. Like, how many times do we even find out what's caused the weight loss? We just celebrate it and tell them how great they look and then move on. My eyes were first open because I had the most successful year of my life career-wise when I was my biggest, and I hated it. I felt ugly the whole way through, and that makes me sad that I didn't fully enjoy it and embrace it and let go because I was so caught up on how ugly I felt, which is really sad to me, because there I was living my dreams and I'd done it myself, and I was doing what I'd always dreamed of doing, and I was spending half the time criticizing myself and having this whole diatribe of self-hate over my weight, just ignoring all of my other achievements. And who cares? And loads of people watch it and say, oh, you look beautiful, and I'm still like, no, I don't. And what is that? But also, does it matter if I look beautiful? Oh, there's so much to it. But anyway, it really challenged my own beliefs. I always thought I'd be my most successful when I got to my thinnest weight. I wasn't. I was my most successful at my biggest. Probably also because I wasn't obsessed and preoccupied with trying to be thin, because I think that makes me quite boring. And I've never been thin, so it didn't work. So for me, weight loss did not equate success. That's potentially because I was being truer to myself, and I was putting more time and energy into doing the work that I love rather than trying to look a certain way. I then also looked back and realized I was in an emotionally abusive relationship, and I think I used food as a comfort. So then I'm like, I also think I put on weight because I was unhappy, and food was the only way I was acknowledging that to myself, and I was comforting myself with food. So whatever way you want to look at it, I still don't have a healthy relationship with any of it, and it's something I'm trying to work on. But I am living proof that you don't need to be thin to be successful. So what we are told is a lie. However, I also don't want to use food in an unhealthy way. But I think I do use food in an unhealthy way because of diet culture. I think all of my unhealthy behaviors with food come from the fact that I've never felt pretty enough, and then I've used food as a weapon or punished myself or whatever, and then been like, fuck it, and then I overeat. It's a whole cycle. So harking back to what I said about what would our bodies look like if we didn't have all this pressure on us, how do people know what they actually want or where they're actually happiest in their bodies if they're not allowed to try? And by doing things like always jumping on it and being like, oh, you look good, you lost weight, it reinforces this belief that we are the most desired, we're the happiest, we look the best when we are our thinnest. And again, when I've been my slimmest, I remember crying. I look back at pictures now and I'm like, God, I looked great. But I remember crying in dressing rooms like, I'm so fat, and I wasn't. But I didn't feel any better when I was smaller. I still hated myself. But then I've also been bigger and been in a good place, and I felt really confident and sexy. That would tell me it's all in here. And if we're given space to embrace ourselves and truly love ourselves for who we are and what size we are, then how our body feels, if we embrace that and we're in touch with it and we love it, then who knows where we'll settle, what weight we'll settle at. But again, weight doesn't matter, size doesn't matter. We'll just settle and have a great time. Also, I think we need to be realistic that our bodies are going to change throughout our lives, and there's not one ideal. There's several versions of you. The same way we evolve as people, you know, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we should be able to evolve physically and change. You know, same way we change our hair, get all our hair cut off, and we've been dumped or whatever, and dye it pink. We should be able to change sizes and move around that and not be like judged for it. And if anyone wants to speak about it, they can ask questions rather than just commend us for something we didn't ask them to commend us for. If you know somebody's actively been trying to lose weight for their health, for instance, they've been to the doctors and, you know they're not healthy and it's putting pressure on their heart and they want to lose weight, of course commend them. That's a journey that you know that they're on. So I'm not saying never commend somebody for losing weight. Or if you see someone and you know that they were overeating because they were unhappy and then they've lost weight because they are happier in themselves. That's how I've felt recently. I've lost a stone. I'd like to lose more, but it's because I know I put on that weight because I was exhibiting really unhealthy behaviors in terms of eating, all my things with comfort eating and that I was not being healthy. It was not good for me, and mentally or physically. So I'm happy that I've dropped that weight purely for that, because it's a sign that I'm respecting my body more and I'm loving myself more, not less. And if I hadn't lost weight as a result of that would have been fine. I'd still be proud of myself and the glow up would still be happening, because it's a confidence thing and it's about treating yourself with love. I often think I'd like, if I've ordered a greasy Domino's, yeah, and my cat's trying to eat a bit of it, I'm like, no, it's bad. It's bad for you. It's full of shit. I'll happily put it in my body. And I think that's really interesting. I think maybe if we thought about what we'd be prepared to, let our children eat, what would we eat? That's not something I've tried on myself yet, probably because I don't want to know the answer, because I'd cut out a lot of fun stuff. But also it's moderation. You would let a kid have like a cookie, but you wouldn't let them eat the whole pack. Maybe I'm going to try that, going back to body positivity pages and influencers that we follow. And I'm really not digging people out, because I think anything that you're trying to do to normalize anything or promote self-love is amazing. So I just want to make that really clear. This is not a dig. These are just questions that I'm having with myself and things I want to raise and things that I would ask these people sharing this content as well, because I think it's important that we all have these conversations. But it is not a dig. Anything promoting positivity or love, I am here for it. But I do wonder if we're commending people with what are considered normally or socially acceptable bodies, as in people who are the clothes size that a majority wear, or people with imperfections that we all tend to have, like stretch marks or whatever. If we're commending those people for being brave, for having a little bit of a body roll or a stretch mark, and we're acting as if that's some revolutionary act of self-love, and that's fucked up. It shouldn't be brave or revolutionary to just embrace yourself for who you are and to love yourself for who you are. That should be a given. That should be the norm. And I think it's really important to remember that the way it is or the way it's always been doesn't make it right. With everything that's happening with Black Lives Matter, all of the oppression, all of the injustice, that is how it's always been. So what, do we just stop now and go, oh, let's become unawakened and just carry on? I mean, some people are doing that, but I think those of us with our hearts in the right places know that's not right. So just because society says that's how it is or that's how it's always been doesn't make it right, and doesn't mean we stop fighting for justice and equality. Doesn't mean we suddenly go, oh, do you know what? I don't want to be anti-racist anymore. Society is racist and society is also fattest. But under the guise of health and fitness, we say that's okay. We tell ourselves with health and fitness that, being thin is healthy. Going to the gym all the time is healthy. No, it's not if the behavior is addictive. No, it's not if you're doing that as avoidance. No, it's not if you're not eating enough. That's not healthy. You'd sooner celebrate someone who fits the social ideals and norms and expectations of what looks good and what looks sexy. You'd sooner celebrate that and ignore the fact that they're killing themselves in the gym, not eating too much, doing loads of coke at the weekend so they don't eat, putting loads of pressure on their heart, but they look great. We celebrate and elevate and amplify and applaud that over a fat person who actually eats well and does work out, but because it, in a way that feels good to them when it feels good to them and actually lives a really balanced lifestyle. But because they don't have that dream body, they aren't elevated or shouted about or given as much space, although they're miles healthier. There's the really toxic relationship that we have with health and fitness, allowing us to ignore some behaviors that really aren't healthy because it looks good. If we all checked in more with ourselves about how we feel, if we all spoke to our friends more about how they feel and where they feel good and why, I think there'd be a lot more kind of free movement and space and enjoyment to be had. Because then it can just be a journey. You know, if you're not pinning it on an ideal and you're just finding out what feels good and what makes you feel good, that's a much nicer path, and there's a lot less pressure, and there's also room for it to change and move and evolve, and for you to evolve. It just takes so much pressure off, and I think it comes down to stripping the ego and knowing that there is so much more to us than what we weigh or the size we are. And I've done so many shows where I've then seen press shots or pictures or whatever, and I've felt so shit about myself, and I've just thought, oh, so ugly, and I've worried about that, and I've completely ignored the work I'm doing in the show, the fact that I got that job. I've ignored who I've been kind to that day, who I've made laugh that day, who I've made smile, how hard I've worked. I've ignored my achievements, my talent, my kindness. I've ignored everything good about myself because I'm fixated on not looking the way I think I should look. And we have to challenge that, because what does it matter? What does it matter? I would so sooner be kind and intelligent and loving and educated and on the right side of history and fighting for justice and equality and freedom. I'd so much rather be that person than be a hot girl. Who's going to talk about that when I'm dead? Remember that time she got really slim and she looked really good in that black dress on her 28th birthday? No one's going to say that. And I did look good in that dress on my 28th birthday. I did. But nobody cares. They might use that picture in the paper if I died because I look nice in it, but they wouldn't then go on about it. They'd talk about what I'd achieved. My friends would miss what I gave them. The love I showed them. The care, the consideration. It just makes me sad that we pin so much of ourselves and our identity and what matters about us on how we look, which is ultimately something that we can't really control. Like, we were born with these genes. Nobody asked to be in the vessel that they're in, and that's all it is. It's a vessel, and it's about who you are inside. And if you don't give yourself that love and you don't allow yourself to feel like enough because you're so fixated on a vessel that really had nothing to do with you, that's so sad. And who might you be if you spent all of that time that you spend worrying on your body, if you put that into educating yourself and learning and being the best version of yourself that you can? There's so much more out there. And I think the more we focus on that and on the things that bring us joy and make us happy and make us light and proud and playful and loved, the more we focus on that stuff, I think the more we'd love our bodies anyway, not just in here, but also because we'd probably eat better and exercise more and be more active and do things that would be good for our body in a healthy way. And we would look the best of ourselves because we'd look healthy and glowing. I don't know what the key is, but I would love to find it. And I want little boys and girls and everyone in between, however you identify, I want people to grow up free, to just be who they are and just love every single bit of it and love the journey and embrace all of it and not put these confines and shackles on themselves because society like keeps infiltrating our heads with these ideas of what we should look like, as if we look like that we're better people. And if we spent half the time we spend, not eating enough or doing ludicrous workouts in our rooms or punishing ourselves or beating ourselves up because we don't fit an ideal, if we spent half that time fighting for justice and equality and to stop oppression, we'd be flying. The world would be a better place. We wouldn't have needed Black Lives Matter. But a lot of people are more bothered about what they look like in a bikini than the fact that there's a huge humanitarian crisis in Yemen, or that black people are still dying because of the colour of their skin. We ain't shit if we're worrying about that. We need to be better and we deserve to be better. We owe it to ourselves and we owe it to each other. So I implore you to love yourself today and to give yourself space to find out actually what feels good for you and what makes you happy and what gives you joy and what lifts you up, because it's definitely not somebody else in some office somewhere decided, because it's capitalism, it's consumerism, and they want you to hate yourself. That's where they profit. If we all loved ourselves, we'd be unstoppable, and a lot of brands and places would make a lot less money. But maybe we could give that money to a humanitarian crisis. Maybe we could put that money towards a better life for all. And I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to you. This is not me coming from some higher place. I've got a long way to go myself. But I want to try, and I want to create a world that's better for those that come after me. So I just call on you to love yourself today and get in touch with yourself and like feel your body for all it is. I'm feeling it here. There's so much about me, and there's so much about all of us. There's so much to us. We're so intricate and unique, and there's so much to love, and we need to start, because the more you love yourself, the more open you are to love other people. So I'm going to love all of it. I'm going to love every single thing that society tells me not to. I'm going to love it harder because it deserves that love, because it's told on the daily, subliminally and out loud, that it's not good enough. So those parts of myself that I wish were different, I'm going to love harder. And I wish the same for you. Bye-bye.